We are live.
Thank you. Good morning. I send greetings to each member and to the citizens of Chatham County and to our customers who support transit every day. I would like to call this meeting to order. Time is 10:02. Beverly, can you do roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Chairman Cody,
Present.
Director Emister,
Here.
Director Odell,
Here.
Director Stone,
Present.
Director Lockett, Director Adams,
Still connecting, Beverly.
okay. Director Adams, we're doing a roll call vote. Director Robinson,
I'm here.
Director Leggett, Director O'Halloran,
Here.
and Director Adams.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum, Chairman.
Thank you, Beverly. All right. It's not on the agenda, but I would like for us to adopt today's agenda for August 24th, 2021. I will entertain a motion in a second.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Emister,
Sorry, yes.
thank you. Director Odell,
Yes.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Lockett, Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett, Director O'Halloran,
Yes.
and Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Motion passed for the adoption of the agenda.
All right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda are our brokers. I welcome Ms. Cindy Robinette and our partners with Sterling Seacrest Pritchard to present this information on marine insurance renewal. Ms. Ragland can open up the floor.
Good morning. Yes, this presentation will be in reference to the renewal for marine services. As the board has been notified, we were given a recommendation, and Ms. Robinette is here to present the options to the board for your consideration this morning. Cindy?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I always like to start by just saying thank you from Sterling Seacrest Pritchard. We appreciate the opportunity to serve as Chatham Area Transit's insurance advisors, and also to sincerely thank the team, the management and administrative team at CAT, for always working so diligently to get us the information we need in a thorough and timely fashion so that we can solicit bids from the various carriers. So thank you all for that. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Wonderful, fantastic. Well, today's presentation has to do with the marine insurance for Chatham Area Transit. And I thought I'd start just with a brief overview of what this covers, and then talk about the pricing, and probably be a pretty brief presentation. But if you all have any questions as I go through this, don't hesitate to stop, and I'll certainly take questions at the end. But in general, there are two sections of the coverage for the marine. The first is protection and indemnity liability.
Excuse me, Miss Robinette.
Yes.
We see your calendar, a different
Oh,
screen than the PowerPoint.
I am sorry about
Okay.
that. It went to the wrong spot. Is it there?
Ma'am, thank you.
Oh, my apologies for that. So I guess going back, as we were all distracted by the calendar there, the marine insurance has two components. The first is the protection and indemnity liability, and the second is the hull. The protection and indemnity is for third-party liability for bodily injury, property damage, also provides coverage in the event of an accident of injury to passengers on the vessels, as well as the crew. and also provides some wreck removal coverage, some pollution coverage, et cetera. So when you have an unfortunate accident in any of the ferry boats, or also the docks or the gangways, the liability exposure for those is all wrapped into this coverage. And then the physical damage, if something were to happen to damage the ferry boats themselves, this coverage provides the cost to repair or replace the ferry vessels. Did someone have a question? No? Okay, great. And so you see at the bottom of this chart, the insured values of each of the vessels and their passenger loads. So that's the subject of this insurance. Just to give you an idea of its value over the past several years. Fortunately, in the last 4 years, we have not, CAT has not had any claims, but there were some claims going back into the 15, 16 and 16, 17 time period. So the insurance coverage has paid out and benefited Chatham Area Transit. Hopefully we'll go the next 10 or 20 or 100 years without any claims, but it's nice to have in case we need it. As far as the marketing summary is concerned, the incumbent insurance carrier is Atlantic Specialty International Marine Underwriters. They're owned by One Beacon, and they have provided a limit of $2 million for the liability and then the whole physical damage coverage in the past. This year, early on, they came to us. There are a lot of changes going on in the marine marketplace from an insurance standpoint, very limited supply of carriers, pricing changes, et cetera. And they indicated to us they would not be able to provide the full $2 million in limits for this renewal. Not anything that CAT has done, but just because of their own internal restrictions. So we went out into the broad marketplace to solicit quotes for those excess limits. At the end of the day, they've come back on the physical damage portion, presented a reasonable renewal, about 2.5% increase in premium. And then on their first $1 million, they came back with about an 11% increase. And then, of course, we went out for options above that first $1 million. And there were 4 insurance companies that actually will be sharing the limit, each of them providing a certain 25% towards the total limit. And that's Velatus, Starstone, New York Fire and Marine, and Ascot. And as far as the excess is concerned, we have some options for your consideration with the increasing severity of claims, as well as increasing passenger counts and traffic in the Savannah River. We thought it would be prudent just to present some higher limit options. So we do have some additional options for consideration. This chart gives the pricing comparison from the expiring program, which is the chart closest to the left, and then the renewal premium. As you can see, the whole coverage just up slightly. The primary P&I, that's the primary first $1 million of liability limit, has gone up 11% from $77,380 to $85,928. And then the excess, we have the new carriers in there. And for a $1 million excess, which is consistent with what you purchased, what CAT purchased last year, that's up about 24% at $30,000. But we did go out into the broad marketplace, and that is the most competitive bid that was presented for the renewal. But we want to point your attention to the options at the bottom. Again, with the increasing claim severity we're seeing, you're using the ferry boats, you're subject to maritime liability, et cetera. We've seen, and I guess you all have seen too, the increasing ridership on the ferry boats. Just give some, we're recommending giving some consideration to spending a few extra dollars to purchase higher limits. And if you can see, a $1 million limit is $30,000. A $5 million limit, which would be excess of your primary, would be $52,000, and $10 million limit, which would be X of the 1, providing a total of $11 million in limits, would be $62,000. So those are the options that we are bringing to you all. And again, this just highlights that, historically, the total limits have been 2. And we're recommending consideration of the options. And then the only other change in the terms and conditions for this year is that the renewal date is changing from August 20th to September 1st. And that is only because we needed to get this presentation in front of you all to be able to make that decision. And the insurance marketplace, particularly the marine, is, I guess, inundated and backlogged, if you will. So they were not able to get us the quote in time for last month's meeting, which is why we're presenting this to you all today. And with that, I will be happy to entertain any questions.
I just have one thing, looking at those numbers, we're going to be paying 30,000 regardless. I don't see any reason not to increase to 10 million for the extra 32,000.
Yeah, I think the pricing is very, reasonable, stepping up those limits significantly from 30 to 62.
Yeah.
Ms.
With
Val,
these new super tankers and stuff out there, there's increasing chances of problems.
I agree with Dr. O'Halloran. We need to up our coverage.
yeah, I agree with it as well, but my concern is, and that would be Ms. Cutter or Ms. Val question, is the impact on the budget.
Won't matter if we get sued.
Well,
True.
but it also matters if we don't have the cash to cover. That's what my question is. How are we budget wise?
Yeah. And
Am I losing my view here?
yeah, I will let them answer that question. I think we did we projected a much higher renewal increase for when we gave some projections for the budget. So I will obviously let them answer, but I think we're close to what was budgeted for this coverage, even with the higher limits.
Can someone from finance or Ms. Ragland, can you answer that question for us?
Yes, initially we had budgeted for, I believe it was 47,000 for renewal. And we sent a recommendation to we sent some information to you as board members that we were recommending as we received information from legal, because we share with them as well our concerns and our desires to increase the coverage. So the recommendation that came from legal was, yes, we should increase to the $5 million, which was $52,000, which would only give us about $6,000 more than what we had originally budgeted for. And we have realized some cost savings within the budget. We can cover that.
In addition to what Mrs. Ragland has just communicated, we definitely need to pursue obtaining this additional insurance because of all of the reasons expressed this morning, because of savings within the marine operating budget, in addition to funding that we have in reserves. I think definitely this is a good move and the budget could sustain the additional cost.
And are we talking 52 or 62 now?
The difference in the $10 million coverage is only I believe it's $32,000.
Right.
Bobby lost it.
So that's the difference in what was approved.
Join the meeting.
Okay, so we're looking at 62.
The total cost is 62.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I agree that we should up it.
We also have some reductions in payroll.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Ty Butler with Bowen Falcon. I just wanted to mention that this issue of the increase in the limits was put to us, and we put it to our Admiralty and Maritime Division, and the unanimous response was that regardless of the issue of finance or budget, which of course is not an insignificant increase, but given the various reasons that have mentioned here today, that the increase of the limits to $10 million or the increase in the premium was both the responsible and prudent thing to do.
Thank you for that, Mr. Butler. I agree. We shouldn't do the increase. Do you have anything else?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would like to just mention that through the committee meetings, previous committee meetings, that this this mention of the insurance renewal was discussed and it was placed on the consent agenda. However, as Ms. Pritchard stated, as Ms. Robinette stated, we could not proceed with renewal until today with the board's approval.
All right. Thank you.
No. Well, thank you all. I appreciate again the opportunity to make this presentation and also to serve as your advisor. And we will certainly, pending your decision, be ready to move forward whenever we have instructions to do so. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to thank Sterling Seacrest Pritchard for presenting to the board this morning. That's one of the items we will be taking action under consent today. We will have 7 items under consent. Each item has properly gone through committee for discussion. I would like to ask for a motion and a second. Beverly, can you do a roll call vote, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't recognize the second.
We have a second.
I'll second.
All right. Beverly.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think Helen actually seconded right after I motioned.
Okay.
Okay, well, I thought I made the motion. That's fine.
No.
Director Emerson,
Yes.
Director Odell,
Yes.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Lockett,
And he says, yes, we just can't hear him.
okay, thank you. Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett, Director O'Halloran,
Yes.
Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Motion passed, approving the consent item.
All right, thank you. All right, the next item is being introduced as special board rule prohibiting the recording of executive sessions. The rule was emailed to everyone, so I will ask for a motion and a second at this time.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay. Director Emerson,
Are we gonna do discussion?
Yeah, quick discussion point. I've got a question for legal. But can you guys provide us like the framework with how are minutes recorded to in the executive sessions, and how do we keep track of that? Because I know that we have to have some sort of not a recording, that's not specific, but we've got to have some sort of minutes, I believe, or summary. Have we been doing that? Where are they? How do we get access to them? Do we have access to them? Can you just talk to us about sort of, I just want to make sure we're not overstepping our rights and what we can do with this rule.
And my question was too, there's a mention of a Georgia statute, but we didn't state the Georgia statute. And I was wondering what that statute was. That's my legal question as well.
Dr. Robinson, I'm assuming that you're referring to the Georgia Open Meeting Act.
No, there was the actual, let me get back to it. The actual letter that we received from chairman, it said, whoever has it can look at it. It states Georgia statute and it states the Open Records Act, which was an additional statute that I thought it was referring to based on how it reads.
Well, I'm afraid I was not able to open the agenda this morning so that I can refer to it directly, but I recall references to both the Open Meetings Act and the Open Records Act, which are two different acts. One is Title 50, Article 14, which is open meetings, and one is Title 50, Article or Chapter 18, which is open records.
Okay. My only question, Mr. Butler, was the fact it said Georgia statute, but there was it wasn't specified which statute we were talking about. I think Ms. Beverly, do you have that letter from Mr. Cody handy? Because
I do, yes, ma'am. So you're referring to the violation of this special rule of order by a board member in grounds for discipline, including seeking the member's removal from the board for cause under the provisions of Georgia statutes and procedures, including if necessary by petition to the Superior Court of Chatham County or to the Governor of Georgia.
Exactly.
All right, what that refers to, and I of course drafted that code of conduct and ethics. That refers to several statutes that I can't call up by memory as the exact title and article and chapter citation, but there are provisions in the Georgia statutes with regard to public officials and governance that permit in certain circumstances an application or petition to the governor for removal of a board member by the governor, or in some circumstances also by the Superior Court. I can't recall at this sitting exactly what those particular chapters are.
Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, my question.
Yes. All
I
right.
already said it.
Ty, do you call that question?
I'll have to have it repeated for me, please.
Okay, on page 35 of a document called Open Meetings and Open Records Laws that was published by the Association of Chatham Counties in Georgia, it says minutes of executive sessions must also be recorded, but are not open to the public. The minutes must specify each issue discussed in executive session. In executive session where issues subject to the attorney-client privilege are discussed, the minutes must reflect that an attorney-client discussion occurred and its subject matter must be identified. This goes on for some time on a couple pages. So I know that we've got to have some sort of minutes. They're not verbatim, it's not a transcript, but we need to start having minutes because I've never seen any minutes from any executive session that we've ever done. And I think it's important that we do have some sort of summary in case legal action was ever to happen. It's detailed in this document, that's pretty important.
That really takes minutes at every executive.
All of that,
Right.
all of that is that you read from whatever that source document was, or it's not a primary, it's a secondary, but all of what you read is accurate, and the staff is aware and reminded a number of times that those minutes are to be kept. You would not have seen them unless there would have had been a request for a public disclosure or a request for production or inspection of those minutes. But the minutes are supposed to be kept, and staff does know that those minutes are kept by hand and are not are not transcribed unless and until there's a request for inspection under the Open Records Act, or in fact a request by a board member. The minutes are can be held not subject to disclosure.
I think we lost you there, Ty.
That's the way it's done for the county. The minutes are taken by hand, and if they're later requested for court purposes or for any legitimate reason, there are minutes. But they are not recorded minutes, is my understanding.
Exactly.
And what Ty is saying is that we have the minutes. You don't see them until they're requested for some specific purpose. But Beverly takes minutes in every executive session.
Okay, I would recommend that we add to the end of our executive sessions a quick review of those minutes. I think that might help with making sure that we're all on board with what has been put into the minutes, into the summary. And other than that, I fully support this.
Let me ask a question, Clinton. That can't be read in a regular meeting. I mean, they're
Correct.
executive.
In here, it says, how should minutes of executive sessions be approved? It says the law is silent on how minutes of executive sessions should be approved. They could either be approved during that executive session or at the next executive session. It can happen privately in session, and I think that's important because we need to be confidential on these matters. I just think we need to start doing that. I think that would be good practice for this board and for moving forwards. Just like we do the minutes with really anything else.
But they can't be sent out ahead.
I don't disagree with
Correct.
that, so long as I mentioned, whatever the matter is that was discussed has been finally concluded. And in fact, I think that's not a bad idea to approve the minutes, but it would have to be called up by a board member and requested for approval, because until approved, those minutes are subject to correction or impeachment.
What if it sort of happened like this at the end of our executive session, right before we adjourn into open meeting? If the person recording the minutes shared with us what they had written down, and then we say, okay, and then we go from there. I think as long as it's not really a vote, we're not voting on anything, we're just reviewing the minutes. I think that would be important.
Mr. Edmondson, do you mean an immediate review of the shorthand minutes taken during the executive session, or a subsequent call up and review at a subsequent meeting?
I think it makes sense to do it at that meeting immediately.
Well, I agree that it certainly couldn't hurt to have a review of the minutes so that everyone is in agreement that what has been recorded or what has been taken down is correct.
But but in our case, does Beverly need a minute to kind of, make it so that it can be repeated? In other words, is she using shorthand? Is she, how is she getting this done? And I don't know. I mean, I just don't want to put, I don't have a problem with the summary being read. I just want to make sure that, this does not add any stress level or, how these minutes are prepared if she is ready to do them at the end of our executive session.
And I think the beauty of that is that they don't have to be verbatim.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, I just want to bring that up. I don't want to, sometimes I know in the situation of our clerk with the county, the minutes of our regular meetings, it takes a few days to get those out and sent. So I just don't want to put any undue stress on people. If we could approve them at the beginning of the next executive session. It doesn't matter to me. Either way is fine.
And I think the idea of reviewing them right then, I think it kind of helps with the clarity, you know, or at the next, either way is fine with me. But I think, yeah.
Mr. Butler, if you and I can get together, I would like for us to review the open records, the Open Meetings Act. I do believe for the summary of the minutes that we do capture, if the board is asking to have those approved during the executive session, it would have to be the next scheduled executive session, not the same.
Well, you're correct. It would not be an approval, because an approval would have to be
Not approval.
done
review.
in a right. It would just simply be a consensus agreement, and if someone disagrees, they can be outvoted. Or excuse me, not voting. You can't vote in the executive session, but the consensus would shift.
And I also agree with
I certainly wouldn't want to create a new stumbling block for executive sessions that would extend them or cause them to become even more contentious.
Right.
And I agree with I agree with Director Stone in that when the executive sessions are held, you know, we exit, we come back to regular session, and if there is a point of concern, it can be brought up at the next executive session, because I think our agenda has executive session like an open opportunity to call an executive session. So I just think that it gives Beverly more time to do it at the very next executive session.
I agree with Dr. Roberts.
That works for me too.
Yeah.
That seems to make more sense.
Yeah.
I move to approve.
Second.
I think it's already been approved.
Oh, that's right. We need to vote.
Right.
Thank
Can we
you,
hear the
Director.
vote? Can we hear it again, since we've made changes?
I don't believe any changes have been made to the motion. This is only a recommendation.
We want to add the fact that after every executive session, the following executive session is we will review the minutes.
I don't think that makes sense to put that in this
If you're
rule.
Yeah, I think it's fine the way it is.
Yes, right. That would be a separate issue, not applicable to this
Right.
issue of recording of executive session.
But again, just for my benefit, Mr. Butler, if at some point, nothing urgent, if I could actually see those Georgia statutes, because I really would like to, I know the open, you know, that, but if there's any others that we have not seen or discussed, if you can think of them, I'd like to see them and read them for myself.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So we looking for, we already had a motion and a second.
Call for the question.
Right.
It was the item being introduced as special board rule prohibiting the recording of executive session.
Yes.
Director Emerson,
Yes.
Director Odell,
Yes.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Lockett.
He said yes.
Thank you. Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett, Director O'Halloran.
I'm abstaining because there's no way to enforce that.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Cody.
Anybody can be
Yes.
recording, and we have no way of knowing it.
And Chairman Cody. Thank you, Dr. O'Halloran.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Thank you. All right, we are now at the part of the agenda for the executive director's report and department updates. We use this time to hear from staff. Ms. Ragland, I turn the floor over to you for department update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I've included my report in your packet, but there are a couple of things that I would like to focus on. Uh, Just for your information, tomorrow is the event where we are collaborating with Health of Savannah, J.C. Lewis Healthcare, and at the ITC for vaccinations, for a vaccination clinic from 9 to 12. We are asking the public, if you haven't been vaccinated and you would have a desire to be vaccinated, you can go to this clinic tomorrow, located at the Joe Murray Rivers Intermodal Center at 601 West Oberthorpe Avenue from 9 to 12. Also, we want to make public and let the public know that the extension of the mask requirement on all modes of public transportation has been extended through January 18th, 2022. So we have not been lax in asking our customers to please wear a mask. And if they don't have a mask, we have bus operators that can provide masks to them. So we ask you to please continue to wear your mask as you traverse upon buses with Chatham Area Transit, both on the paratransit and fixed routes. Additionally, I would like to inform the board that I met with the national and a regional representative of Senator Warnock's office on yesterday, and they're very pleased with the way that Chatham Area Transit is moving forward. We discussed some earmarks that we have, some projects that we're working on, and they are ready and willing to support CAT in all of these efforts. And that concludes my report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. All right, we'll move forward then with our service delivery and service safety updates from Mr. Dumas.
Ms. Ragland, I think if you guys are in close proximity, it's causing some feedback.
No, ma'am.
Because
I don't know. I think everybody's in their individual offices. I don't think anyone is in close proximity.
Okay, but I think if everybody mute themselves, maybe that'll help.
Okay.
That's just a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Ms. Ragland, Board of Directors, and to everyone else. Your service delivery update is included in your packet. However, there are some points that I'd like to highlight in our presentation that we have for you on today. We will continue on at this time. Next slide, please. Our fixed route and on-time performance, as you know, we've set a target of 70%. We have not met that target for the month of July. In fact, it's slightly down from last month, but compared to July a year ago, it's not too far off. We do have some challenges with COVID and ridership at this current time, but we will continue to reach and press for that target that we've set at 70%. Next slide.
I have a quick question before we go to that.
Absolutely, go ahead,
Can
sir.
you go back one slide? Why is the line at the top at 90% if we're looking for 70?
The line at the top is set at 90% when you
We're never going to hit 90. We know that. We should make it realistic and graph it at 70.
We will make that correction, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks, when you look at that, it looks like we're awful.
That line is at 70, I think.
And this graph is not to proportion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
as far
doesn't
as
have
I
a
can tell.
y-axis.
Yeah, because I thought it was at 70, but I agree with Dr. Halloran. You look at it, if you count the lines as, depending on what your, if you're graduating by 10 or 20, it does make a difference.
I
We have
agree.
enough bad numbers to look at.
There's nothing wrong with dreaming big.
Absolutely, but we will make that adjustment to adjust that number down, that line down to more of what we're looking at on this particular slide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our fixed route ridership, when we look at it, it is slightly down a little from last month, June, but compared to July of last year, we're up And so we're continuing to have an increase in ridership from a year ago. We're still down from pre-COVID numbers, but we're getting closer each month. And so we'll continue to work on anything we can, any and everything we can to increase our ridership. Next slide. Our paratransit on-time performance, our target is at 93%. We are up from last month, 91, and that's on average. Again, when we look back to a year ago in July, we're on target there. So we're doing real well considering all the challenges that we're facing, but the drivers and those employees in paratransit are doing an outstanding job.
What happened in June?
I don't have the answer for that, Ms. Stone. I will look back and try to get a response to you, but I don't have that information.
Well, it would be good to know if there was some major glitch there, because that's, if you look at the whole graph, that really kind of sticks out.
It may have been COVID call-ins where drivers were out.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know. I just would like to know.
All right, we will get back to you. Thank you. Next slide. Our paratransit ridership, the average that we want to reach, the average there is 69.27. We are again slightly up from June, and again not quite as high as we were a year ago, but we're moving in the right direction. So June was a little higher than the month of July, but we'll continue to work on that as well. Again, most of what we're facing with the ridership is dealing with COVID. As you all are aware of, many of our employees are being impacted through family members and having to take precautionary or testing positive, and we're doing what we can to try to move as many passengers and do everything that we can to accommodate all of our users. Next slide. Our paratransit on-time, top 3 on-time performance. Again, Nicole Lloyd, Erica Lockett, and Chiquita Jinks. They're real close in numbers. In fact, most of them do real well, but these 3 are outstanding for the month of July. Next slide. Our CAT mobility reservation forms online. Our numbers are still not where we want them to be. They're still lower than we hope to, and we will continue to push that information out, make the users more aware of they can do this online to save time. But now that more people are out actually using the system, I think they're just relying on just calling in instead of doing it ahead of time. But we'll continue to work on that to try to push that information out again. We hope that we can get back to what we did in January when we had a great response to online reservations. Next slide. Our water ferry ridership, again, it continues to go up. It is up even higher from last month. And there's just a combination of things that caused this, from conventions to summertime, that people are touring our city and just using the system. And again, we give kudos to that staff. Mr. Jimmy Gummy, the director, they're working hard and diligently to try to accommodate as many riders as that we're getting. Next slide. Our maintenance, again, this is means between vehicle failure. The target is 12,000, and we're reducing it each month. Try to get to that number. Each month is getting better. July is better than it was in June. And this is just outstanding, recognition for our maintenance department doing what they can to make sure that we're maintaining good, reliable transportation. Next slide.
We want those numbers to go up, right?
Do we want the numbers to go? Well, I'll get back with you on that. I thought that picking up on this from what I understood from Mr. Cooksey, and that the numbers, the target is 12,000, and we are going closer to that number.
You would want it to go. Yeah, that means that's the least the vehicles in operation. If they're being worked on, they're not in operation. You want that number to go down.
That's my understanding, yes.
I mean, each month when we looked at it, it had to do with how many times is a particular vehicle in the shop, for example. So if they're in the shop less, then that means there's less maintenance going on. So those numbers should go down.
But these numbers are the distance that the vehicles are traveling between.
Right,
Bam.
failure, right.
Yeah,
So
they should be going up, especially on new buses, not down.
No, if the heading says mean distance between vehicle failure.
Which is breakdown.
Right, so
We
shouldn't that
want
number?
that to be as far apart as possible, meaning they're being maintained well.
Mhm.
So if that number is going down, that means that they're being maintained and failure is less.
No,
No,
that's
that
the
means the
opposite.
failures are more.
Okay,
Failure is more when the numbers are up or down.
But we're very ahead of that goal. We're doing pretty good, I think. Still should go up, but
That has to do with very good maintenance and also with the fact that we've replaced a lot of vehicles.
yeah, but
And we have the newer vehicles require less maintenance.
right.
You got to remember these numbers were set when we were way behind on bus replacement.
Right.
And now that we've caught back up and actually went ahead when we ordered 18 new paratransit vehicles, we should hope that they get 30 or 40,000 miles before they break down.
Well, thank you all. And I will also check with our maintenance director to verify the information that is being stated to make sure that we're all saying the same thing.
One question. So are these numbers between, do they start if the vehicle breaks down, or is this just the start of a brand new vehicle?
This should apply to all vehicles, not just brand new vehicles. It should apply to all vehicles that are in operation when they leave our service garage to go into service.
Yeah, but let's say you got 20,000 miles that the vehicle went. Is that saying that that vehicle went 20,000 miles since its last maintenance, or is that 20,000 miles that the vehicle has on it?
That's a question, again, I will have to get back to you, Mr. Chair, on that to check more with our maintenance director so I can answer appropriately.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, because there is routine maintenance. I don't think changing a tire or oil changes are included in that. It's downtime mechanical failure. If it's taken off service, then that would be where that mileage would be recorded and then averaged between all vehicles. At least I remember that's what we were doing in the past. I don't think it's changed. I don't think we've had time to make those kind of changes, but I think those numbers are great.
So thank you, sir.
I do have one other question. With the we noticed that, or at least I saw in the graph, that the ferry numbers are up drastically. Do we have the capability to store another ferry? We have one that's paid for. Is it worth ordering it even without the completion of the dock on the west side?
Ms. Valerie, do you have comment on that? I cannot respond to that without.
Yes, sir.
further
As you know, we are seeking matching funds so that we can move ahead and order another ferry, but we can accommodate another vessel. And we are seeking to do just that. Some of the older vessels, where at least two of them are causing high demands on service, and the parts sometimes are not becoming available to us. The maintenance, the Marine Director, Mr. Gunby, is doing an awesome job of keeping the boats afloat. So yes, sir, we are moving forward. We can accommodate another vessel, and we are moving forward to do just that.
And weren't those funds approved already for matching?
Yeah, well, we are having some discussions with some entities, and we do have the resource of SPLOST. But of course, we don't want to exhaust all of those funds. So we are working out, Ms. Cutter and I are working with some other entities to make that happen.
Okay, because I noticed too, when we saw the numbers on the insurance, that one or two of the fleet have rather small capacities. Are we planning on adding a larger capacity vehicle?
Yes.
Someone's got
Yes,
their
sir.
mic open.
I don't. Yes, sir. We are looking at providing larger capacity as well.
Yeah, because if Jimmy's over there using duct tape to fix the ferries, I think it's time that we push that along. I know it was all being geared on whether or not the dock opened.
But believe me,
was open, but demand is outpacing that.
Exactly, and believe me, it is a priority for staff to get that vessel ordered.
Okay, because we got 1.28 million sitting out there just waiting to be spent.
Yes, sir.
And it doesn't come out of our budget, which is even better.
We're making every effort to make it happen, Dr. O'Halloran. If you could see what we're doing behind the scenes, you really.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because no one can see there. All I see is beautiful bushes.
I
know you guys are, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware that you're doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir, we are. Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue on. Next slide. At this time, I'm going to ask our Director of Safety to come in and speak to you on the current COVID number as well as our risk management. So at this time, Mr. Charles.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, and listening stakeholders. I just want to provide an update on COVID-19 numbers. The numbers that you see were submitted last week as of the 21st. And at that time, there were 29,036 cases just in Chatham County, not the entire state of Georgia. So these numbers are just going to focus on Chatham County. The rolling average indicated that there were 205 cases just on that day. And there were a total of 458 total deaths. Now, moving ahead to today's date, using the same 7-day rolling average, there are now 31,073 cases. There are 261 cases reported on the 21st, and now there are 464 deaths. The good part is that Pfizer's vaccine has been approved by the FDA, so hopefully that'll help with the vaccines, and hopefully the increase in vaccinations may help the numbers to go down just a tad bit. And as indicated previously, we do have a vaccine clinic tomorrow here at CAT. Next slide, please. What we've done from risk management was take a glimpse at what we're looking at in terms of what our payouts are, claim count by body location. What we're seeing for this month is that we have a multitude of lower back injuries. Next slide. And I'll show you what that looks like in terms of money. There were $346,425 incurred in claims. That's just for 5 claims. And that's a total of $69,285 per claim. Now, what we're doing as we look at these numbers from a safety perspective is I'm formulating a newsletter to address proper ways to avoid back injuries. I'm also taking these numbers to create an opportunity to encourage operators and maintenance staff. Bro, what kind of bullshit is this, dog? Wearing actual back brace to help prevent some of these injuries. As you can see, the numbers can become astronomical over time. So we're looking at trying to find ways to reduce those numbers moving forward in terms of educating employees and seeing if there are ways that we could insert practices that will alleviate some of the injuries that we're sustaining. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
I have a couple of questions. I think you're right on there with the back supports. I think everybody who's involved should be. These chronic fatigue injuries are extremely expensive insurance-wise. And actually, I think at some point, you know, why did I lose everything? I just got some kind of screen come up blocking me off.
We can see and hear you though.
You see.
Okay, I'm going to get back to the question I keep asking is the county or the city mandating vaccines for public employees?
Not to my knowledge, they are not. I have begun conducting some exploratory research in terms of what other transit agencies are doing. None of them have concluded that they're going to mandate vaccines. They are being discussed in terms of being mandated at several other agencies, but they've not yet made that full determination. We may see some changes in attitudes now that the Pfizer vaccine has been endorsed by or approved by the FDA and it's no longer experimental. So we're going to wait and see if that has an impact on whether or not agencies are mandating vaccines, as well as see what Chatham County City does.
And just to add to that, oh, no, I forgot my question. Oh, I think we need to start reporting the amount of downtime that we're getting because of COVID callouts. What percentage of lost work hours there is because of that. I know last month we mentioned 14%. Is it still at that number? Has it gotten higher or lower?
We've not checked, but based on just observations and what I have seen, the numbers are probably going to go up. I know what has attributed to that from an operational perspective is that you're seeing more school-age kids getting sick, and that's also impacting whether or not our employees can show up for work because they have to quarantine with their students.
Dr. O, to address your question about the city and the county, they have not yet mandated, but you know, there have been some discussions. They're ongoing, but there has not been a mandate issued.
Okay, because I know they're doing it on the federal level. I don't know why it isn't trickling down to state and local municipalities at the same rate.
Ms. Ragland, did we ever come up with an incentive plan for the operators and have to get vaccinated?
We, as I shared with the board, that we have been in discussions with representatives from the city, the county, and the school board, and that is a preliminary discussions that we've been having. We have not, as a separate entity, Chatham Area Transit, incentivize any employees for vaccinating, but we are collaboratively working with these other agencies, these other entities, governmental entities, to come up with a plan that we can all follow. So that's in the preliminary stages, and I will keep the board updated as we progress.
And especially with the approval coming through on the Pfizer. I don't know if we need to wait our drivers and our, you know, that's our first protective order. If it's considering how much time we're losing for people being out, the incentive sounds to me like an excellent idea. I don't think we need county approval for that.
We don't, sir, but it's just a united front. There's strength in numbers, and to have a united front to collaboratively present to the public that we all thinking the same way, that we're all in this together as one count.
And the schools aren't requiring it on their drivers or teachers yet?
Not at this point, no, sir.
What the heck are they waiting for? More deaths? I mean, I don't get it. people are dying and we're sitting here sitting on the fence going, oh, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. And it's getting just totally out of hand.
It's just, I think, Dr. O'Halloran, the specifics, the logistics of everything, trying to implement the plan to make sure that everything is covered, to provide assurances for those who refuse to vaccinate, for those who may be hired after decisions have been made. So the logistics of working everything out, that's what's going on now.
All right, well,
Something is going to be done. Something is going to be done. It's just how the plan is implemented.
Well, I'm hoping we're taking the lead. We're dealing with 4 million trips a year and everybody's potentially exposed at that point. All right, enough COVID ranting from me. I'm done.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If not, we'll move on to system development update. On Roundtree. It's Roundtree.
We don't hear you, Ms. Roundtree.
So we lost the sound.
Just 1 minute, I'm pulling it up, I'm sorry.
We do see your screen.
Okay, you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hey, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Cody and members of the board. I am presenting the System Development Divisional Update this morning. One of the things that we're highlighting this morning is that we are taking a deep dive in assessing and reviewing a short and long-term plan. This is just an intensive process that is already underway, and it includes review of existing CAP plans and documents, as well as identification and review of related plans. We have determined that as we are having more grant opportunities become available, it is vital that we have projects or potential projects and services that we can apply for. And so this process kind of has included a review, a cross-tabular review of all of our existing documents and plans, and just how we can improve it, as well as looking at some of the accomplishments that CAT has already had, and what we can do, projects that we have not been able to implement, what we can do and how we can improve those. We have also underway a gap analysis. We have drafted a vision for the organization, as well as for just the future of CAT, just how our service looks. And also we have drafted goals. We are kind of now in the process of recommending objectives, recommending performance measures, drafting a scope so that when we look at short-term and long-term planning, we have already incorporated service improvements and just our organizational goals within this, and looking at our legislative priorities. This is kind of an overview of some of the studies that we have reviewed and we kind of just used kind of a benchmark for 2013. 2013 was the start of our transit development plan. Since that time, we have had several plans, and with that, it's very difficult when we have not, some of the projects we have implemented, but there's many that we have not. So that's what we're really doing now, is just kind of identifying that, so that anytime a grant opportunity comes about, we will be more proactive in knowing what we can do to plan ahead and what projects to submit for, instead of trying to develop the project at that time. Most items that we've identified in the plan, they are still viable options. So, you know, just because the plan was developed 2 or 3 years ago, it doesn't mean that these options are still not viable to the organization and to our citizens. And this is kind of just an overview of some of the goals that we have come up with. Provide innovative service solutions. That is something that we hear all the time by our board members, and we have taken that under consideration. We know Director Stone always talks about first mile, last mile. So we are really taking a deep dive into seeing how we can integrate some of these projects and services and partner with this short-term and long-term for the organization. Another goal that's very important to everyone is the engagement through advocacy, marketing, and outreach. That is just something that it is timeless. It is something that it's constant that we have to do. Just making sure that we have the support of our community members and achieving excellence through high quality service delivery. We are fully aware that we've been missing the mark a little bit in providing service, but we are committed to improving the customer experience and looking at tools that we can do to improve how we are providing service. And just to highlight a few of the objectives, build a supportive network of stakeholders. That is something that we really need for the organization because it ties to the first objective with increasing public awareness. We have to feel good about the service that we're providing. And also when we're seeking support from our stakeholders, we need to be sure that they can stand behind the services that we're providing too. So all of this is really tied to just overall review of our services and providing excellent service. Also collaboration with community partners, regional agencies, and residents to increase services. Recently, we have had a lot of opportunities to partner with agencies, certainly because of our shortages and other obstacles. We have not been able to say yes as much as we would like to. So we just really kind of have to really improve and find out how we can be better to provide better service to our stakeholders. And continuing enhancement, improvement of maintenance of capital assets. That is so important. We just need to make sure that, our buses are running, that we are getting people to where that's connected to on-time performance. And so that's very important that we ensure that we take a deep dive into looking into enhancing and also diversifying our fleet. Right now we have fixed route buses, we have paratransit, and people know that, but we are looking at adding alternative vehicles to our fleet of services. And most importantly, expanding funding sources. Any opportunity that we are looking at grants, we are trying to apply. So that is so important with this overall development of our short-term and long-term planning for the organization. The next steps are definitely SMART. We just really need to look, and when they say we, it's not just staff, but we need the support of our board of directors, our stakeholders, and community members, that when we start developing these plans, short-term and long-term plans, that they are SMART, that it's things that we can really obtain and that we can accomplish. We just don't want to come up with ideas that sound good and that we can't fulfill. So we really want to do that. And we're going to kind of start that process in September. So next month, really just kind of engaging with our employees and finding out some improvements that they would like, as well as some of our stakeholders. Legislative priorities, that is so important. As Ms. Val said, she's already started meeting with our legislators and representatives. And we just have to really start coming up with priorities that we can aim for. And that is tied to funding and grants. So that is so important to identify legislative priorities for the organization. And long-term and short-term goals. We have in the past have developed a TDP and which needs to be updated. So that is one of the goals, one of the plans that we are trying to really kind of launch again. But just really looking at it and having measurable goals where we review it annually so that if there are updates that we can kind of monitor that. And that's one of the things. And all of this is connected to the mobility vision for the organization of economy, energy, environment, equity, and emergency. It's even more important now with COVID by having plans in place so that the organization is prepared for short-term and long-term. No one would have known COVID, but now through this experience, we're prepared so that when other emergencies like this come up, we know how to plan for it. And everyone has mentioned about the vaccine pop-up clinic, so we are excited about that. I'm not going to mention more than just wanting to acknowledge the staff members, members of this team who were instrumental in putting this together. And so that ends my presentation. Are there any questions?
Ms. Roundtree, I've got a question, comment.
Yes, sir.
Very cool. Love seeing this. Really enjoyed your energy on this presentation. I think transit, especially CAT, plays an important role in setting up some big goals and some big visions to kind of pave the way for our other stakeholders and sort of other governmental organizations behind us. I've always had this idea of CAT kind of being like a thought leader in the community, sort of really thinking, really hitting the edge of what's possible, how we move people around, and how we think about system development. And we have so many incredible resources that we have already spent time and money on and had hours and hours and hours of community conversations about. I think re-looking at these and re-energizing them, figuring out where, what information we want to take with us as we move forward is going to be really critical. We have such a tremendous backlog of really interesting and innovative concepts. The two things that I would add, the first one, God damn it, what was it? I should have written that down. Okay, I can't remember. I'm looking at you had a slide that included non-CAT reports and policies that have recently been put into place, all focused around transportation. I would also encourage us to look at all policies and all plans that have anything to do with land use and zoning. I think anything that CAT can be doing to curb urban, suburban sprawl will just simply make our job a lot easier because we will have less distance to travel. I think the NUZO from MPC, whole bunch of regional studies about sort of growth and development, anything that we can be doing to advocate for density and tighter population growth, I think will be really critical. And I do know that was in the grant application that you guys sent out, this idea of a transit-oriented development. I really think that should be considered not just as a location or, as a district, but really kind of a thought or a concept for how the MPC and the county and all of our townships are thinking about development in their own cities as well. Just basically this idea of land use, because we have to travel distance, and distance is caused by people building everywhere. I can't remember what the other one was, but I'm not that worried about it. I'm really excited to see this, and thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And Ms. Roundtree, I just want to echo what Director Edminster just stated. I think it was a great presentation. I think those goals are attainable. I know it's going to require a lot of work.
Yes.
But I think our goal is to increase ridership, and to impact as many lives as we can with our services. So I'll just say congratulations, and whatever we can do to assist you, please let us know.
I will. Thank you so much.
I did remember what I was going to say under goals. It was the first item under goals was look at innovative system concepts or something like that.
Solutions. Yes, sir.
Yes, I think we need to do that. I also think we have a lot of opportunity to not actually be innovative at all, but sort of just apply some really basic critical thinking to the routes that we already have. Yes, I'm fascinated by the concept of first mile, last mile, and micro mobility, and all of these very cool, very high tech concepts. But there's also so much more that we could be doing with our regular fleet. And I think kind of a back to basics approach, coupled with the service delivery solution and some of the solutions that Director Stone is talking about. Now that starts getting really interesting. Yeah. I think that's where we start getting to some actual effective transit. Okay. So great job. That was cool. I love seeing that.
If there aren't any other questions, we can move to our financial services update with Ms. Cutter. Stephanie?
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board of Directors, Ms. Ragland, colleagues, and the public. I will move forward with a financial update for the month of July. Next slide. The financial overview for the month of July, really a positive picture. In comparison to the budget, the revenue came in at a little over $1,000 more, primarily due to other tax revenue that came in the amount of $23,759. And it was offset, of course, by senior circular service still being down and missing that revenue. The expenses were significantly lower than budget, $458,866. Wages are down, benefits are down, contract services are down, and professional fees are down. Next. Cash receipts, funding sources for the month, pretty much same as usual. The special district tax, paratransit funds, POR fees, and of course, our grant assistance. At the end of July, the operating balance was a little over $4 million, $343,401. This slide, it gives a comparison, and what I attempted to do is add a line that shows fiscal year 21 actual, so that you could see how fiscal year 22 will compare to fiscal year 2021. The month of July, the projected cash, the ending balance, as I mentioned previously, a little over $4 million. The red line represents the actual for fiscal year 21, and the green bars are the projected numbers for fiscal year 22. We're going to monitor this very, very carefully so that we know when we need to make very critical conditions and or recommendations to the board to make sure that we are in a good financial state to meet operating to meet operating costs. Next slide. This chart breaks down the revenue by source. And what I attempted to do here is kind of summarize the numerical printouts that the board receives to make it a little easier to follow and understand. As you can see, the leader continues to be the transit tax, which we rely heavily upon for local grant matches and to keep the organization going. Pretty good picture for the month of July. Revenue a little up, expenses down. Next slide. Actual versus budget for July of 21. You'll notice that the SSD and the grant revenue is projected, actual versus budget is the same. Went back to reporting on an accrual basis. I think it's in the best interest of the organization while things are so volatile that we switch back to reporting on an actual basis, it just gives a better view of where the organization is financially, how the monies are coming in monthly on an actual basis, just to help us to better plan to meet unforeseen changes and or impact as it relates to the growing COVID numbers. You can see the passenger fees still a little down, program fees minimal, special services, the senior circular services we provide to Savannah State, those services are not activated, and of course impacts our revenue. But we will continue to work towards as best as we can to get these revenue generating programs up and running. Next slide, please. The expenses by category, no surprises here. Salaries, wages, and benefits are the most significant expenses experienced by Chatham Area Transit. The good thing is that we are able to continue to operate and timely meet the financial obligations. Next slide. Expenses by operating program. The intent of this slide is to show the board by service delivery program that expenses, the actual in comparisons to the budget, in every category, expenses are down in comparison to the budget. And these savings will help us with unexpected expenditures. One, for example, today, the increased cost of insurance. And as the graph shows, the expenses for marine services down in comparison to what was budgeted. 74,531 actual in comparison to the budget of 91,591. Next slide, please. And as we move forward, we're going to get more into the compliance piece. This chart will be used monthly to just let the board know some of the things the division is doing to ensure not only good fiscal stewardship, but also how compliant are we with federal regs, with state regs, to ensure that we still are in a good shape to receive both state, federal, and even enhance local government participation. Under the internal controls, we talked previously about the efficiencies of the system that we use, Munis, to manage finances, and our HR training was done. The initial training was done on July 22nd. It went very well. A follow-up training to get down into the nitty-gritty, that's scheduled for October 22nd through October 23rd of this year. During the month of July, we had our first compliance audit, and that was on employee benefits deduction. It was very meaningful. Brought HR, service provider, along with procurement to the table to discuss some of the concerns that resulted out of the audit, and reaped a very beneficial result. Let's go down to 10-year financial planning. We talked a little about this piece as it relates to the ferry system earlier. I think all the board members and all of the staff realize the urgency of procuring additional ferry vessels. Dr. O'Halloran mentioned the grant money that we have sitting, that have been sitting for a while. And with this program, we're really at a critical point. We need to move. The CAT attorney, our insurance broker, has reiterated the importance of and the necessity of increased insurance simply because of all of the traffic on the river. We have to be prepared, the increased ridership. So it's not just a CAT responsibility, but we are working with our community partners to make this happen, to expand the ferry system as a whole. That concludes my presentation for this morning. Are there any questions for me at this time?
I just have one. Are they planning on restoring the senior circulator?
Yes, they are. However, nothing has happened as of yet. Staff is in continued communications with the city related to this. And I think from CAT perspective, knowing that the FTA is really high on provided needed transit services to our elderly and disabled, we are trying to send the message and share that this service is of just critical importance. Seniors need to get to the doctor, they need to get around. It's just very important. So we are really pushing to get others to understand the importance of that. And with the service being down, wherein there's no agreement with it, that's going to get critical soon as well.
Is that a separate contract from the DOT shuttle?
Yes, it is. Yes.
So I hope we're reviewing that contract carefully, because I know we may have missed some stuff in some of our other contracts in the past where we grossly underestimated our cost.
Absolutely.
Because we're talking about $125 an hour for fixed route service.
Yes, yes.
And we're charging way less for some of our other services, and there is no difference. A mile is a mile. I don't see how it changes because we don't purchase vehicles other than through grant funding. So the cost of vehicles shouldn't even be considered in the contract negotiations.
Absolutely. You're right on point, Dr. O. And that's why getting staff educated on the capabilities of the accounting system that we use, so that we are incorporating the entire cost of what it takes to provide a service. And until we do that, we're kind of guessing at what that is.
Yeah.
Ms. Cutter.
As long as we're aware that we have to start reviewing these contracts, because I know with Savannah State, we grossly underestimated that. And they ended up paying us almost $350,000 more than we requested, because their accounting system said you did it wrong.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm not blaming anybody. This is from the past. Numbers were thrown around. We were down at 99 an hour a year ago, which was grossly underestimating our costs.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're working diligently to be more effective with that, because really, to render a service, you have to make sure you're covering the cost of the service.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming Savannah State's done until at least next September.
I'm not sure on the length of that contract. They have not requested any services. as of yet. So we are attempting outreach to kind of figure out where they are. They're still making some decisions on campus, primarily housing type issues for the students coming back. So they really haven't given much attention to this component as of yet.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that for at least a year.
Yeah, you're probably right.
All right, well, we got to keep digging for those revenue sources. So
Yes,
hopefully
sir.
we can come up with some other ones. And what's the, are we on a permanent shutdown on the airport shuttle?
There has been, and Ms. Val can better respond to that than I. They did approach us a couple of months ago. However, the numbers just wasn't there yet that would demand, that required a demand for CAT to service the airport. So as things pick up, I'm sure they will be getting back with us. They weren't really talking about money to support what they were asking for. So until they actually get there to talk about the monies to support the service and willing to fund it, the ball is kind of in their court.
I see Mr. Vacker's there. Is any update from you, Mike, on the airport?
No,
almost
there
going
is
to nap in there.
You almost did. No, there is nothing further. I think the effort that was initiated a couple of months ago was to try to get over the hump where there was an extremely short supply of rental vehicles and
no used cars.
No, and Stephanie is correct that there really was no funding source that could be identified to do that. So I think until further notice, that can just be set aside as something that might make good sense in the future, but not right now.
Okay, as long as we're keeping both sides in contact, so we know when we have to start making changes.
No, we are. Thank you.
Oh, no, you can, if you got something else, go ahead.
I was going to add, Mike, I didn't ask you initially, right after my update, if you would like to address the board with any updates.
Can I ask Ms. Cutter one question right quick on the finance before we move off of that?
Oh, sure.
Ms. Cutter, on the slide that related to grants, there was a note about some funding source for the month of August. And I just didn't want to interrupt you at the time you were speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that and explain that to me.
Could you go back to that slide, please?
Yeah.
Is this the slide you're referring to, Dr. Robinson?
FTA grant assistance, the total due is 2 million.
Yes, we still have grants in progress where we're waiting on FTA approval for drawdown.
And
did I answer your question?
Yeah, and when you say we are amending our operating grant for FY 2020, does that mean some up or down adjustments, or what does that actually mean?
Well, what that does, it means just moving dollars around, operating versus capital versus operating. Those amendments that are in progress. As you all recall, back in March, and this is just an example, the board, approved to move some 5307 money around because we got the Clarissa funding that covered us at 100%. And any time you do that, there is a process of amending that you have to go through prior to funds being able to be drawn down. So that's what this is all about. You know, we have to wait until the amending process goes through before we can actually draw the money. The money is there, but the amendments have to go through this approval process, update it, add it to the trams, and then it can be drawn down.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yes.
And I would say that your slides, your graphs are really easy on the eye. I enjoy
Right.
graphs.
Well, that's the intent. We really want the board to always be informed as it relates to finances and operations, and however we can simplify it wherein it's understandable. That's the goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
Sure. I think my report is pretty much self-explanatory. I think the one thing that I would like to stress is we're going to be watching what happens with this COVID-19 money and the grants process that is moving forward. The state is in the first tranche of allocating somewhere near $1 billion of funding. Obviously, the area that we would be most interested in would be in the negative economic impact. And I know the previous discussion about some of the impacts we're running into from people not being able to work, et cetera, and the costs that are accruing with that. We need to make sure that we've got pretty good records on that, because I have a feeling that there will be significant opportunities for us to come in and to ask during the second round of funding with that money for negative economic impact to be probably pretty successful in whole in terms of those additional expenses that we are incurring. Basically what I would have to say. We're working on starting to set up what our legislative agenda is going to be with our series of brown bag lunches. And so stay tuned, and we should have a pretty much a more significant report next month once we get those under our belt.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Chairman, if you would allow me to, I'd just like to thank each member of the employees, all employees of Chatham Area Transit who have stepped up to the occasion. It's been difficult during this pandemic. In addition, we've had so many other roadblocks. So I want to thank each operator or marine employee, call center, administrative, maintenance, everyone, and especially the executive staff who has been working so hard and so diligently to correct what we need to correct within the organization. They haven't been coming in early and leaving early. That's been a thing of the past. So I want to thank them for their hard work and their diligence. And we're going to keep moving forward to make these improvements in efficiencies and be a more effective transit mobility manager. I'd just like to say that, and thank you. That ends our report.
Thank you, Ms. Ragland, and I thank you and your staff for doing a phenomenal job today with your presentations and everything. And as far as your relationship with the employees at CAT, I commend you all on that for going in a positive direction. And with that being said, next we're going to enter into executive session to discuss potential litigation and personnel matters. I move to enter to executive session and executing an affidavit. I'm going to take a motion in a second.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. Beverly, let's take us out into executive session.
Yes, sir. Director,
Has to be voted on.
Director Emerson. Thank you, Dr. O'Halloran. Director Emerson.
Yes.
Director Odell. Director Stone.
Yes.
Director Lockett. And he said yes. Okay. Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director O'Halloran,
I'm going to abstain. I'm not going to attend the executive session.
okay. Yes, sir.
There is no guarantee of privacy and confidentiality, and I do not plan on participating.
Yes, sir. Understand. Thank you. Chairman Cody,
Yes.
motion passed to enter into executive session at 11:42.
All right.
I'll set up the breakout rooms.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
No, they're in executive session. I'll hear you leave on the door shuts. Make sure you close it all the way.
Hey, Dr. O, this is Eric Curl. I just wanted to let you know that you are unmuted and we're streaming live.
Okay.
Chairman, it is now 12:35 and we're back in open session.
Thank you. Now that we are in executive session, I would like to state that there were no votes or action taken during our closed session. At this time, I would entertain any motions we have.
Mr. Administrator, you're muted. Unmute yourself, please.
Thanks. Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the amendment to the settlement agreement with Jackson Lewis approved at the previous board meeting.
I second.
Beverly, can you do?
Yes, sir. Director Emerson,
Yes.
Director Odell,
No.
Director Stone,
No.
Director Lockett,
Director Lockett?
I'll come back to you, Director Lockett. Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director O'Halloran,
Abstaining.
abstaining. Yes, sir. Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm just checking back with Director Lockett.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passed, Chairman.
All right. Thank you for that. We don't have any other business today. I'm gonna move to adjourn this
What
meeting.
about the retreat?
Beverly, we have any updates on the retreat?
Yes, sir. The date would be September the 17th.
Virtual or live?
Right now, we're going to be live, Dr. Robinson. That's what we're planning for. And it will be off-site, and that information will be sent to you in an invite.
Okay, okay, well, I'll talk directly to the chairman.
Okay.
What's that date again?
September the 17th.
17th.
Is that going to include the orientation?
Yes, sir. That is correct, Dr. O'Halloran.
What time frame are we looking at?
10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Great.
And the location to be determined?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Will it be available virtually? Because I don't plan on attending in person.
We should, at the offsite location, they should have that accommodation, Dr. O'Halloran. So I'll check and see. I'll work out the logistics and see what the possibilities are.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else you needed from me, Chairman Cody? At this time?
No. Do we have any more questions? All right, with that being said, I want to adjourn today's meeting. It's 12:39. I want everyone to have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
You too, Chairman.
And we'll
Thank
see you
you.
tomorrow, Wednesday, Ms. Ragland.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon.